Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we'll be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter 21, Lord Krishna's explanation of the Vedic path. Hare Krishna, please join us for Jayarada Madhav prayers. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Mangalacharan prayers. Together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Hare Krishna. Please join us in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 20, of the Vedic path. Hare Krishna. That just declares that it's auspicious time to discuss Krishna Leela. More like Radha Leela. So in this chapter, Krishna will be discussing Radharani. Okay. Hare Krishna. Her glories. Title of the chapter is Lord Krishna's Explanation of the Vedic Path. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter 21, verse 1. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Ya etan mat patho hitva.
Ya etan mat patho hitva.
Bhakti jnana kriyatmakan.
Bhakti Gyan Kriyatmakan.
Kshudran kamam chaleh pranehe.
Shudran Kamakshale Prane.
Jushantah samasaranti te.
Jushanta Samasaranti te.
Please.
Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Ya etan mat patho hitva.
Ya etan mat patho hitva.
Bhakti Gyan Kriyatmakan.
Bhakti jnana kriyatmakan.
Shudran Kamams Chale Prane.
Kshudran kamam chaleh pranehe.
Jushanta Samsranti te.
Jushantah samsaranti te. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Those who give up these methods for achieving me, which consist of devotional service, analytic philosophy, and regulated execution of prescribed duties, and instead being moved by the material senses, cultivate insignificant sense gratification, certainly undergo the continual cycle of material existence." Purport: as clearly explained by Lord Krishna in the previous chapters, philosophical analysis and also the performance of prescribed duties are ultimately meant for achieving Krishna consciousness or pure love of God. Devotional service based on hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord directly engages the conditioned soul in the Lord's loving service and thus is the most efficient means of achieving the Lord. All three processes, however, share a common goal: Krishna consciousness. Now the Lord describes those who, being completely absorbed in material sense gratification, do not adopt any authorized means to achieve the Lord's mercy. Currently, hundreds of millions of unfortunate human beings fit squarely into this category, and as described here, perpetually suffer the bondage of material existence. Hare Krishna. Please join us in seeking blessings of the Acharyas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshitarine Om Ajnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangvam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So, as we generally start with the blessing, the interesting thing is, even though this verse appears to be so many negatives, but the blessing is hidden in him. So let's derive that blessing right from Lord Krishna's instruction. What did Lord Krishna say? And how could that be related to a blessing? So, yes. Today we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 21. Lord Krishna describes the Vedic path, right? His explanation of the Vedic path. And we'll be covering as how to follow the Vedic path all the way back home, back to Godhead, for eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So again, knowing well that we would be blissful, we should follow this path. But how do we do that? Why do we do that? Because that's the goal of life. Because that's the only way for us to be out of this material world, right? Anand bhaya abhyasa. So we are all seeking happiness. But we are actually in this material world trying various ways, various endeavors we are engaging in, but finding miseries at every step. So how do we overcome those miseries? How do we overcome and transcend the three modes of material nature so that we can be properly situated in our true position? Jivera Sarupaya Kṛṣṇa Nityadas. So Lord Krishna, he is identifying, earlier he identified that he is the one who gave Vedas. And Vedas talk about three kind of subject matters on a broad level. So what are those three kinds? Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. And of these, Bhakti Yoga is the supreme. So Lord, in the previous chapter, clearly described that by following Karma Yoga process, as a duty in the mode of goodness, one comes to the level in mode of goodness that one can realize the religious principles. Same thing with Jnana Yoga. When one does analytical study of the various scriptures, one comes to the level that there are religious principles there, they need to be followed. One has to follow their prescribed duties. And they should be done duty bound, right? So, in the mode of goodness, the knowledge is where one sees everyone equally. Jivera Sarupaya Kṛṣṇa Nityadas, that every living entity is an eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. With that view, he is saying that this energy that we see as material energy, why do we call her material energy? Because people look at this energy separate from Lord Krishna. Looking at various sense objects, they think that these sense objects are separated from Lord Shri Krishna and meant for our sense gratification. And that's why it is the wrong view. So again, yet at the same time, mode of goodness, one comes to know that actually all energies that we see in this material and spiritual universes are nothing but expansion of Lord's potencies. His external energy is expanding as this material energy, and his internal energy is Radharani. Who is that? Radharani. And external energy we sometimes refer to as Maya Devi or sometimes as Durga Devi, right? And she is also referred to as Vaishno Devi, right? So, Mam Maya Duratya, Lord Krishna says, right, that this material energy of mine is very difficult to overcome. Mame viya prapadyante maya metam tarantite. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross over it. Now, we understand this surrender process, but how do we surrender? That mood has to be corrected. And that's what Lord Krishna is revealing. So Lord Krishna in the very first verse is saying, those who give up these methods of achieving me, which is consisting of devotional service, analytical philosophy and regulated execution of prescribed duties. So now, if you follow this by giving this up, you are constantly bound in the cycle of birth and death. So you should not give this up, right? Simple, very simple. He is saying that one should never give up devotional service, analytical philosophy, and regulated execution of prescribed duties. Now what else is there? And instead of being moved by material senses, cultivate insignificant sense gratification. So if somebody is developing sense gratification because of the influence of the senses, right, then they would be bound in the cycle of birth and death. However, when one is not driven by senses, but actually, all actions are being controlled to please Lord Shri Krishna, right? Instead of satisfying the senses, right? One wants to satisfy the master of the senses, Rishikesha. Then of course, there would not be such diminution. So one would not fall down in the cycle of birth and death. So very simple process. Only two things we have to take care of. But then in the previous chapter, a third thing was added on. So that is assumed that when you include these three, you don't ignore the third one. And what is that? So here, one should never give up devotional service. One should not give up, reading Vedas and performing analytical study of the scriptures, bona fide scriptures. Or one should not give up as well as one's prescribed duties. Then the second aspect is one should not be moved by the material senses, should not seek sense gratification, rather should be engaged in satisfying Lord Rishikesha, Lord Krishna, who is the master of the senses. Right? And how do you not engage in sense gratification? That is also, this is where the distinction comes between pious and sinful activities. So as we heard in the previous chapter, Lord Krishna describing that a devotee is beyond pious and sinful activities. His reference was, he is telling Uddhav, because Uddhav in a way challenged Lord Krishna, right? So he is telling Uddhav that actually when people engage in pious activities, we also say, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So people find different necessities in this life and they are always trying to find solutions. So sometimes people see misery, then they say, okay, let me go to the heavenly planet because there are thousands of times more pleasure, the sense pleasure there and all the facilities are there. So I will not experience any misery. Not knowing that their miseries are also thousands are more subtle and stronger. In the hellish planets, everybody knows that miseries are, there is constant suffering. So one cannot have peace of mind. And also Lord Krishna revealed that on this earthly planet is where even the demigods and the demons, they want to take birth, the human form of life, which is perfect to take to devotional service. Now, unknowingly, people who are seeking sense gratification, they make arrangements for future. And they try to spend, with lot of making different kind of sacrifices for their own future. So again, who's in the center? They are putting themselves in the center. They are not putting Lord Krishna in the center. So this is also very important, that we should not put ourselves in the center, rather we should put Lord Krishna in the center. But people who are trying to improve their, lifestyle, their living conditions, their future, they are making extensive endeavor. Atyahara prayashasya prajalpo niyamagraha jana sanghasya lalyam cha sadvira bhakti vinashyati. They actually referred to sometimes as skill of the soul. Why? Because the 6 symptoms, the principles which actually destroy bhakti are what they are practicing unknowingly, thinking that this is all in all. So there is mode of passion, they're being influenced by mode of passion because they want name, fame and glories and all the comforts, and also driven by sometimes mode of ignorance, because that's like indolence and laziness and everything just come by its own accord and I should just be enjoying it. That's their mentality. And there is, Atyahara. Atyahara means one who eats too much. But it also, Srila Rupa Goswami Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is explaining that one who is acquiring too much, one who is collecting too much, right? In case of householders, yes, it has been given that they should. But in all other ashrams, they should not be collecting for future. And Dharma, Earth, Kama, Moksha. So these 4 aspects are there in Grihastha life, in a householder life. Dharma is religiosity, Earth is economic development, and Kama is enjoyment,
and moksha is liberation. But such people, they are more focused on the first three. They are not, focusing on the fourth element, liberation, moksha. Rather, they are focusing that how do I, collect a lot of things, atyahara, and then to collect a lot of things, they do over endeavor for their own sake, right, to enjoy in this material world. So when they are doing overhand, prayashash, so they are, pravarga come into effect. Pa, pa, ba, pa, ma. Pa is for parishram. And when you do a lot of endeavor, a lot of effort, parishram means endeavor, a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, then just like a horse, when you make it run for a long time, it gets exhausted and starts foaming in its mouth. That's phena. So one, when he's, engaged in this extraneous set of activities to collect a lot of things for the future, they start foaming their mouth, pha. And then they get bewildered, ba. And then, seeing that they are bewildered, that they are expecting the results to come which will make their future good, but they are seeing the results to be opposite. They are seeing actually misery is coming their way. They become fearful, bhaya. So, bhaya means they become fearful. And soon, by this endeavor, they start working harder. Instead of stepping back and analyzing this whole situation, they continue to go and they lose the important time, and of their life, the sun is setting. Mrityu. Ma is for mrityu. So this pravarga is very important, and acharyas have explained again and again. Tasyeva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadha tallabhyate dukhvadanyatah sukham kalena sarvatra gavir ramhasha. So one should not endeavor for anything that can be easily obtained in this material universe, even from Brahma Loka to the Patal Loka, to the lowest planet. That should not be the focus of life to achieve. Because happiness comes just by its own accord, just as distress comes by its own accord. So happiness and distress are the dualities, right? And one who's seeking happiness is caught in this cycle and only faces distress. So we should be very careful. So atyahara prayasha prajalpo. And then in such endeavor, such person, he is engaged in gossip, talking about various subject matters, but with a different point of view, putting oneself in the center instead of Lord Kṛṣṇa again. So all these 8 principles that we are seeing, which is causing the destruction of one's devotional service, right? If devotional service is the lamp in our heart, they are actually subduing it so that it turns into, spark is sometimes not even that. So it becomes completely dormant in the heart, and they become hard-hearted. And at that time, we will talk about the rescue also, how they escape in this situation. So prajalpa is gossiping. So one should not engage in gossiping. Rather, here the instruction is clearly given. One should read and study bona fide scriptures, right? And that's also austerity of speech, right? One should speak very pleasantly, something that does not agitate others, still be truthful, right? And recitation of Vedas. So it is not that the Vedas, by following Vedas, the Vedas have any fault. It is actually the practitioner who has fault, because they are doing the Vedas, the study of Vedas, for their own sense gratification. So that is the fault. Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals that in this particular verse, one should, engage in Jnana Yoga, one should engage in Karma Yoga, one should engage in Bhakti Yoga for the satisfaction of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes when we do the chantings, people say, yes, I did it attentively and I feel so proud that I chanted. The actual question we should be asking is, did we do it attentively enough that Lord Kṛṣṇa is satisfied? That is the true question we should be asking. And when we chant the holy name, more than Lord Kṛṣṇa, we are hoping to please our mother, Radharani, right? Srimati Radharani, our supreme mother, our eternal mother, Radharani. Is she satisfied? Are we able to get into, even at the glimpse of the mood that she has in serving Lord Shri Krishna. Because if we satisfy her, then everyone is satisfied. If you go to Barsana Dham, if you go to Braj, what do people say? Radhe Radhe. Right? Barsane Wali Ki Jai. So again, everywhere. If you go to Vrindavan, when we go to Vrindavan, everyone is saying Radhe Radhe. Sometimes people in anger, they say Radhe Radhe. Right? People are happy, they say Radhe Radhe. People are asking, where are you going? They're saying Radhe Radhe. So it's very interesting that you can talk all languages just by 2 words of our mother, Radharani, Radhe Radhe. Even the Mahamantra starts with, how does it start? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It starts with Radharani first. We are calling, oh Mother Hare, Hara, and then with love we call her Hare. Please engage me in your service. So dear Lord Shri Krishna, please engage me in your devotional service. It's in a prayerful mood we are calling out to our mother. And when mother is putting a petition in front of our father, right, our request she is taking to her father, Lord Krishna would of course be easily affectionate. All we have to do is satisfy mother. And everybody knows that it is very easy to satisfy mother. Even when my son comes, he says come, he doesn't ask me to come. He asks my wife to come because he knows that mother would be more easily pleased. I can make her agree, and then father does not have any grounds for me to not agree with him. So again, this is mood of Radharani, that she is just such an affectionate mother. She just wants to bless all of us. When we sing the prayers, right? When we start the class, we start with Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunjabe. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Again, we are actually glorifying Radharani before Lord Shri Krishna. And then, it's very interesting that when we hear Bhagavad Gita instruction, the supreme instruction, the final instruction that Arjuna is given is Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Lord Krishna is saying, give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Yet at the same time, we understand the right mode, we actually have to surrender to Radharani, our mother first. Because when we go through our mother, our surrender becomes, becomes glorious because mother is taking. And when Lord Krishna needs to be satisfied, we pass on things to our mother. And that's why when we do worship also, we are actually carrying it out on behalf of our spiritual master. So, and he's carrying it out on behalf of his spiritual master. So the offering that we are making to the deities is going step above and above and above, all the way to in the parampara, in the disciplic succession, the parampara, sampradaya. So as it's going up, it goes to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, right? And what happens there? This is, Gauranga Mahaprabhu is Antah Krishna Bahar Radha. And on top of that, he's in the mood of Radharani. So, Lord Krishna wants to experience the mood of Radharani. And so he has opened up the treasure house, the gates of the treasure house of Golok Vrindavan, of the supreme abode in the spiritual world, and has spread this message all around the world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Just by taking to the chanting of the holy name, we can achieve perfection. And the holy name starts with Mother Hare, Srimati Radharani. When we sing many of the prayers, we start with Radharani. We glorify her. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. How did we start? We start with Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna. When we look at our deities, we call them Shishi Radha Madan Mohan Ji, Shishi Radha Shyam Sundar Ji, Shishi Radha Govind Ji. Right? Mother Radha is again before Lord Shri Krishna. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when we follow in Gauriya Parampara, we are actually devotees of Radharani trying to take her shelter. Right? So how do you take someone's shelter? There are two ways. Anukaran and Anusharan. So this Anukaran is more like Falgu, right? Anukaran is imitating someone, just acting as they are acting. But Anusharan is following in the footsteps by taking to their instruction. So when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the minimum 16 rounds on a daily basis, minimum 25 rounds on a special occasion, our mood, and this is also a concession given by Srila Prabhupada. He kept the principle same, he changed the detail. Because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, would say, if you are not chanting 64 rounds, you are a patita, you are fallen. But Srila Prabhupada was so merciful that he said, well, with this busy life, at least chant 16 rounds, and then I will be able to provide you protection. Right? So if you want to seek protection from Srila Prabhupada, take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, we should attentively chant the 16 rounds, not just to please him, to please Radharani, to please our spiritual master, and of course, seeking to please Lord Shri Krishna. With that attentive mood, and ask ourselves, how could I make the next round better so that Lord Krishna and Mother Radha would be pleased? And again, our focus is Radharani. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is in the mood of, whose mood does he have? Does he have Lord Krishna's mood or Radharani's mood? Radharani's mood. Whose complexion does he have? Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. So when we pray to Radharani, we call her Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, the golden complexion, like the molten gold. That's the complexion of Radharani. That's the complexion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Does he look dark from any angle like Krishna? No, he doesn't. Actually, Krishna is hidden inside, wanting to feel the ecstasy. Ecstasy of whose ecstasy is he trying to feel? What kind of devotee does he want to be? He wants to feel the ecstasy that Radharani feels. Just like her, he wants to enjoy the devotional service. Just like her, he wants to enjoy the ecstasies. Just like her, he wants to fully surrender to himself. He wants to understand what is it that Radharani feels that I cannot feel. And here, this is what Lord Krishna is glorifying. That just like Radharani is serving me, if somebody serves me with that mode, just putting me all in all, whatever I say, just follow it for my pleasure. So that's what Acharyas also explain, right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he gives instructions to Rupa Goswami, many of his instructions were written in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. And the pure devotional service is also glorified. So what is pure devotional service? Somebody can ask, right? Devotional service is, of course, Bhakti Yoga. But pure devotional service, and Srila Prabhupada liked that word, unalloyed. Unalloyed devotional service. There is no alloy, there is no mixture, right? Because even if there is some mixture there, but one has to continue to engage for a longer duration so that that mixing goes away, right? Just like when iron is in the touch of fire, right? It becomes hot like fire, and with red hot, it becomes like fire. So that needs to happen. So if there is any mixture, any of the qualities, and similarly if there is a mixture and some alloy in gold, gold has to be heated for a long time so that the impurities can be removed. So as it is heated on fire, the impurities get removed in due time. So by taking it to devotional service with the right mode is very easy way to go back home, back to Godhead. However, when there is little tinge of, sense enjoyment, inclination, then things are a little difficult because we have to continue to engage in devotional service. When there is an accidental fall down, things are a little difficult, but we have to engage in devotional service. When things are bewildering and one is wondering what is going to happen next, we have to engage in devotional service and call out to the Lordship and Mother Radha. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. While everything is inauspicious in this material world, when we engage in devotional service, everything becomes auspicious. And Lord Krishna, he is identifying this to Uddhav. And he is telling us this through Uddhav. Actually, Uddhav is already a pure devotee, an Ananya Bhakta of Lord Shri Krishna. So he is telling this message that he is giving to Uddhav to take to Badrika Ashram is more for us. That's why chapter 6 to 29 in the 11th canto are also called Uddhava Gita. And Lord Krishna is revealing some amazing, factors here, some amazing secrets. So devotional service, pure devotional service. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavritam anukulena Krishna anushilanam bhaktiruttama. So what is pure devotional service? Pure devotional service is that engagement where anyabhilashita shunyam, that we do not have any desire for self-enjoyment. However, it's not anyabhilasha shunyam. It is anyabhilashita shunyam. Ashita is to identify that whenever a devotee feels anxiety, he calls out to the lost sheep to protect, for protection. So again, to protect him. So a devotee calls out to the lost sheep for protection. That's why this first word is not anyabhilasha shunyam, rather it is anyabhilashita shunyam. Jnana karmadhya navritam. Jnana here does not refer to the original Jnana Yoga, but rather to speculative knowledge. Right? Various kind of theories are there. There are various scriptures out there. There's many, actually Uddhav does identify that there are so many scriptures what to follow and how to follow them properly, my dear Lord. And Vedas, the personified are coming from you. So please instruct. So Lord Krishna is telling him that one has to have the right mode. And that is being glorified. So one should not be covered by speculative knowledge or fruitive activities. No mission, no alloys should be there in one's bhakti. So what is the focus of bhakti? To satisfy Lord Shri Krishna. But how do you satisfy Lord Shri Krishna? This is the mood to start with. But what are the actions? Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. Anukul means as favorable. Krishna Anushilanam, as Lord Krishna desires, following in the footsteps of Acharyas, following the instructions of our spiritual masters. So that's how we should be taking shelter of Lord Shri Krishna, by serving him without having any desire for our own enjoyment, but seeking only to satisfy him. So when we think of this, we are thinking of the topmost worshipper, right? Who is the topmost worshipper of Lord Shri Krishna? Radharani. Her names come from Aradhita, the topmost worshipper. So that's why she is referred to as Radha, Radhe or Radhika. So Radharani is the topmost worshipper of Lord Shri Krishna, and she does everything so expertly just to serve Lord Shri Krishna. And she, sends in her mood Lord Shri Krishna. So again, Lord Krishna wants to enjoy what is her ecstasy, what is her mood. So he wants to experience what she is experiencing. So he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are all, the whole, wherever Lord Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited, he was just spreading this love of Godhead freely. And he was asking his associates, Nityananda Prabhu, Adi Guru, right? He is none other than Lord Balaram. He is, ready to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with mind, body and words, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking him to spread Krishna consciousness all around. He is asking Haridas Thakur, Namacharya Haridas Thakur, to go out different places and, spread Krishna consciousness. He is asking Advaitacharya. Now again, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaitacharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are all Purusharthas, they are all Vishnu Tattvas. Gadadhar Pandit is, Shakti Tattva. He is an incarnation of Radharani. And then we have Devashi Narada Shiva. So again, we see as how Lord is coming with all his associates, and all he wants to do is spread the love of Godhead. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he wanted to open the gates so that we can not just go to Vaikuntha, but the topmost planet, Goloka Vrindavan in Vaikuntha. So he was giving us love of Godhead. It's so merciful. So that is a reflection of Mother, who just doesn't want us to get, the general easy reward. He wants us to get the best reward that there is. And that's how we see. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so again, Sad Goswamis, they revealed the places in Vrindavan that we see today, where Lord Kṛṣṇa and Radharani, they perform their various pastimes, Ashtakarya Leela and so many other, Varsana Dham, as how Radharani is, daughter of Vishbhanu Devi, and how she is later on married. So again, in Garga Samhita, there is a clear differentiation, there is a clear description given that Lord Kṛṣṇa and Radharani were secretly married, and it is the shadow of Lord Kṛṣṇa that took the form of Abhimanyu. And he later on seemed to be the husband of Radharani. And Jatila Kutila are the mother-in-law and sister-in-law of Radharani. And they always know that Radharani is up to something, because Kṛṣṇa and Radharani, they like each other a lot. So they're always keeping watch. And we have talked about so many wonderful pastimes, because Radharani, she's constantly thinking of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So we are glorifying Radharani because she is personification of pure devotional service, right? And devotional service is journey of Jnana and Vairagya, knowledge and renunciation. That we basically achieve through Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. But at the same time, we understand that the goal of all yogas practices is to attain Krishna consciousness, to attain love of Godhead. And by following Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, one can come to that mode of goodness where one performs austerity of, all actions are austere. And actions can be performed three ways: by mind, body and words. So, right? So, by mind, one is satisfied, one is grave, one is constantly meditating, at the Supreme Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So, again, that is austerity of mind. And it's pacified, right? It's very satisfied in the current situation. Doesn't get bewildered. Austere mood it has, that yes, this is my purpose, carrying it out as a duty. Then speech is, it is saying pleasing things, truthful things, that does not agitate others. Yet at the same time, recitation of Vedas. And of all the Vedas, Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost. We always talk about Lord Shiva. Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhu, right? Nimnaganam yatha Ganga. So of all the rivers, Ganges is topmost. Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhu. Of all the Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva is the topmost. Devanam achyuto yatha. So again, of all the worshipable deities, Lord Kṛṣṇa is the topmost, achyuta, right? So among all the demigods also, means again they are not worshipable, because topmost worshipable deity is Lord Kṛṣṇa. And Ganthanam idam tatha. Of all the scriptures, this is the scripture that is topmost, Srimad Bhagavatam. And Lord Kṛṣṇa says that this Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from him. So this is none other than Lord Kṛṣṇa. And it is imbued with his potency, which is none other than Srimati Radharani. So Radhashtami is coming on 25th, and next week itself. So meditate on this. This chapter is glorifying Radharani. And Lord Kṛṣṇa himself is glorifying Radharani. So it's very interesting that when Lord Kṛṣṇa, he glorifies his devotees, especially Radharani, everyone becomes happy. And the devotees are constantly glorifying Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So again, everyone is becoming happy, especially Radharani when we glorify Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So here, in this chapter, Lord Kṛṣṇa continues to reveal as how persons, what kind of characteristic we need to give up, so that, we cheat ourselves, right? We should not try to cheat ourselves from this amazing opportunity to be able to attain the goal of life. What is the goal of life? Love of Godhead. And who can give you love of Godhead best? Srimati Radharani. So again, Lord Kṛṣṇa is also known as Madan Mohan, one who can enchant the Cupid. Madan is Cupid, Mohan is the enchanter of Cupid, right? So Madan Mohan. Radharani is known as Madan Mohan Mohini, the enchanter of Cupid. So she can steal away the heart of Lord Kṛṣṇa. That's why she is also called Hara, because she can hara, she can take away the heart of Lord Shri Krishna. So that's what she does with her love. So Srila Prabhupada, he showed by his example that love conquers all. Srimati Radharani shows by her example that love conquers the very cause of all, Lord Shri Krishna himself. So we all understand that just by taking shelter of Srimati Radharani, just by taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, we can get amazing blessings and we can go back home, back to Godhead, where we will eternally be in bliss, with full knowledge and be engaged in activities which is none other than devotional service. So we should, with this mood that we want to satisfy Mother Radha, we want to satisfy Lord Shri Krishna, we should call out in this prayerful mood that please engage us in your service. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So what are the things we should not do? Well, we turn it around. We should understand what are the things we should do, so automatically we will not be doing other things which could be hindrance in our path. Back home, back to Godhead. So, Lord Krishna is revealing that there are persons who may be performing these three kinds of yogas, but they are unfit, right? What is their disqualification? First disqualification we talked about, that they are placing themselves in the center. So this is way when somebody approaches Vedas. They approach Vedas with themselves in the center. They say, okay, I'm not getting the results I'm getting with all this endeavor in this material world. Let me at least try to make my arrangement for the next life, right? And if somebody also has good arrangement in this, then they engage Brahmanas in making arrangements for their next life to rise to the heavenly planets. So they pick up Vedas and they say, oh, how do I go to, Chandralok, where Lord Som resides? How do I go to, Surya, sun planet, where Lord Vivaswan is the presiding deity? So they are carrying out various kind of sacrifices, not knowing that these sacrifices are being performed incorrectly. Why? Because of the motive. What they are putting themselves in the center. So this, even though it has been performed as a pious activity, it actually becomes a curse in due course of time. Why? Because when they go there, they are again facing various kind of miseries. Demigods are constantly anxious. Indra is again and again saying Srimad Bhagavatam. He is like, oh, this Rishi is doing 100 Ashwamedha Yajna, he will take my position. That Rishi is doing 100 Ashwamedha Yajna, he will take away my position. Prithu Maharaj, he is about to do his 100th, Ashwamedha Yajna, sacrifice, the horse sacrifice. Let me steal away. On the 100th Yajna, he steals away the horse. And now Prithu Maharaj's son, he chases Indra. So he takes this form of, Babaji. So various kind of sampradayas, unauthorized sampradayas, they are starting from Indradev because of that vesh, that dress he takes on. And yet at the same time, he is constantly facing anxiety, and then constantly because of his pride is hurting him. And that's why sometimes he is doing such actions like when his Indra Yajna was stopped by Lord Shri Krishna. What happened? Well, when the Indra Yajna was stopped, he set Samvartika clouds to just not attack Lord Krishna, the one who had given the suggestion. He wanted to annihilate the whole Vrajbhumi. Because Samvartika clouds are sent at the time of annihilation of this material universe. And every drop is like the size of a pillar. So when they were attacked, Lord Krishna lifts Govardhan Parvat, because all the residents, they come running to him. Lord Krishna, please save us. We are your surrendered devotees. Anya Bilashita Shunyam, right? They take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. So Lord Krishna, what does he do? He picks up Govardhan Hill. Does he use both his hands in picking up Govardhan Hill? No. He uses his left hand. And then does he use all of his left hand? No. He just uses the pinky of his left hand. So yes, if somebody says, Lord Krishna, he is a show-off, yes, but for his devotee he is doing that, to please his devotees. Now, we also hear in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that when Lord Devashi Narad, he was trying to find out who's the most exalted devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. The Brahman sent him to Indradev, and then when he went to Indradev, Indradev sent him to Brahmaji. Then Brahmaji first wanted to send him back to Indradev. So he was like, I just came from there. So if, I will go to him, he will send me back to you. I'll be just going back and forth and back and forth. I need a new destination. But then the interesting thing is, why was Brahmaji glorifying Indradev? And, not telling Lord Shiva initially. Because Lord Brahma says that when I was blessed by Lord Shri Krishna, my action was very much lower in its, because all the Vrajvasis, residents of Vrindavan, Vraj Bhumi, they want to engage in loving exchanges with Lord Shri Krishna. They want to constantly be with Lord Shri Krishna. What did I do? I took all the cowherd boys away from Lord Shri Krishna. I took away all the cows away from Lord Shri Krishna. I hid them for a year. Right? So they could not enjoy for a whole year any pastime with Lord Shri Krishna. While what did Indra do? During the daytime, Lord Krishna used to go to for cow herding, for the calves, with the calves and so forth. When he would take the calves with the Gopa boys, the gopis could not see him. Right? Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba could not see him. And they were constantly meditating on him, waiting for him. When will Lala come? When will he come? So that our eyes will get this nectarian, vision of our sweet Kanha, who is so wonderful. His pastimes are so wonderful. His form is so wonderful. His talk is so wonderful. His flute is so wonderful. His movements are so wonderful. His walk is so wonderful. Everything about Lord Krishna is so wonderful. So they are just waiting, anxiously, making preparation to please Lord Shri Krishna while constantly meditating on his name, form, activities, pastimes. And when he comes in the evening, what happens? Now at night time, Gopa boys don't have his association. He goes to the forest and plays his flute, and all the gopis are rushing to the forest to engage in rasa dance. But they are not fully satiated even in rasa dance. Even though Lord Krishna explains the Sharad Purnima night to be as long as Lord Brahma's night, it looks like a moment to all the gopis. So they are not with him during the daytime, gopis, they are in separation. Gopas are in separation at night time. So what to do? So when Indra sends Samvartika clouds for 7 days, 7 nights, Lord Krishna was holding Govardhan hill. What was happening? That all the Gopa boys, all the gopis, Radhika Rani, Nanda Baba, Yashoda Mai, elderly cowherd men and the gopis, they were all with Lord Shri Krishna. They did not feel any pangs of thirst. They did not feel any pangs of hunger. They were in complete bliss, seeing Lord Shri Krishna playing on his flute with one hand and picking up, holding Govardhan Parvat with his another on his pinky. And looking with such charming glasses, everyone was in complete ecstasy. They were experiencing transcendental bliss. They didn't want anything to stop. And then when Indra stopped, at that time Lord Krishna hinted, okay, the clouds have gone away, we can return back home. And that's where they realized that the same pastime is going to happen again, where we will be in separation from Lord Shri Krishna, day or night, while everybody wanted. So that's why Lord Brahma is glorifying that when I engage in my pastime, Brahma Vimohan Lila, I separated the Gopa boys and the cows from Lord Shri Krishna. But Indra brought them together. So that's why he's glorifying Indradev. Yet at the same time, when in heavenly planets, things are not as they seem to be. And that is not how we can attain, our supreme abode. We can attain the goal of this life. In the human form of life on the early planets, it is possible. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he comes, he gives instructions to Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami to go to Vrindavan and reveal all these amazing, dham, leelas, where Lord Krishna performed leelas, reveal where Govardhan Parvat is, where Shyamukund is, where Radhakund is, excavate, re-establish them. So the 6 Goswamis are glorified because they made visible the pilgrimages, the places where Lord Krishna performed his pastimes. And then after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went back to his abode, people were still disturbed. Yes, Jagannath Puri was there, but what about Mayapur? What about, Navdvip? Where did Lord Chaitanya performed his, Sankirtan Yajna, the congregation chanting, the chanting for this age? So it was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur who took Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj to ask where did Lord Chaitanya perform his Leela. And Jagannath Babaji Maharaj, he was a very old person, almost like 200 years old. So when he saw it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, he was just 7-year-old. So it was, when he saw the places, it was amazing. He was being taken on a tokri, right? It was like a basket he was being carried. But when he saw the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had performed his Sankirtan Yajna, he danced in ecstasy. Jagannath Babaji Maharaj, he got down from the basket, he jumped out and he started dancing in ecstasy. That is love of Godhead. You forget about your external coverings and you just feel the happiness that you have been seeking all your life. So that's why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is also referred to as 7th Acharya. And now even there, Srila Prabhupada, right, he further expanded that by bringing Rath Yatra to all the countries on this globe. So he expanded further because he sees with true vision of an Acharya that everything is an expansion of Lord Krishna's unlimited potency. So everywhere on earth there should be, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, saying that every town and village my name will be chanted, my name will be glorified. And Srila Prabhupada, he makes that possible. So again, he is, that general sent by Lord Shri Krishna who is spreading under the mercy of Radharani. He comes, Srila Prabhupada comes with so much with that mercy of Radharani because he is taking care of his disciples just like a mother takes care of her children. He is showing so much compassion, he is showing so much tolerance. Lord Krishna is very strict. Sarvadhammam parityajya mam ekam sharanam vaja. Give up all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. So until then, you have no mercy. Right? Aham tvam sarva papebhya mokshishashme mashucha. So I will deliver you from all kind of sinful reactions. Yes, Lord Krishna gives this assurance. So we have to take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. And taking shelter is also very important. How do we take shelter? Right? So this is also referred to as school mantra. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vivarjanam rakshishyati iti vishvaso gopatitve varnam tatha atmanikshep karpaniye shadvidha sharanagati. So there are 6 limbs of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa, accepting everything favorable for devotional service. Pratikulyasya vivarjanam, rejecting everything that is unfavorable to one's devotional service. Rakshishyati iti vishvaso, understanding that Lord Krishna will provide all protection. Atmanikshepa karpaniye, and taking the guardianship, accepting the guardianship of Lord Shri Krishna, right? Sarv dhabam pritya mam ekam sharanam vaja. So taking sharan, taking shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. Atmanikshepa karpaniye. Atmanikshepa is basically, karpaniya is humility, and atmanikshepa, I'm just skipping some of the words here. So constantly engaging in his devotional service with that mood, that is true surrender. And when we take to true surrender, again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sends his general, Srila Prabhupada, who is showing this love of Radharani. He is completely imbued, so completely personifying as that mother's love, of supreme love, and he is spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world. And all around the world, everyone is chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Now I said everyone is chanting, some may be thinking, but everyone may not be chanting. Well, some may know it, some don't. Like Srila Prabhupada was once asked that, how many disciples do you have? So this was in the beginning of movement. And he said, many thousands. I'm paraphrasing maybe some part of it. He said, some know it, some don't. So yes, sometimes people are calling out to the, Lordship, they are calling out God's name when they are in distress. Right? And sometimes they are being inimical. So that is what Lord Krishna is telling here, that one should not be inimical towards me. But at the same time, Lord is absolute. So Srila Prabhupada said, even if some people are saying these Hare Krishnas are bad, they're calling Hare Krishna so they will get benefit. Because Krishna is absolute. So that is the mercy of Radharani, that is the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. That anybody who comes, even with that feeling, they purify such a person. Yet at the same time, we should not come with that inimical feeling. And the worst of those feelings is to seek sense gratification. Thinking that this material world is separate from Lord Shri Krishna, all these sense objects that are here are meant to be enjoyed by me. So one engages in sense gratification and sometimes take to the path of Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga so that one can enjoy senses. That is not desirable. Rather, one should be seeking the pleasure of Rishikesha, the master of the senses. And that is desirable. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he shows by his examples. The Acharyas, they show by their examples, the spiritual masters, are revealing this truth to us, that we should take us out from the center, place Shri Radha Krishna in the center, and we should engage in devotional service to satisfy them. We should do our japa to satisfy them. We should perform the austerity of mind, body and speech to satisfy them. Austerity of body is to keep it clean, to worship the Lord Shri Krishna, to worship the spiritual master, to worship the Brahmanas, to worship the father and mother, the elders in our family. When we say worship, it means that we should give them respect. We should listen to them. We should try to, help them in whatever way we can, right? That is true worship. It's not that, okay, I've shown you a lamp, my worship is done, let me go back. There's a very nice story that is actually sometimes we get bewildered, right? The scriptures. So there was a spiritual master who was visiting his disciples' home. And it had become afternoon and the disciple had not yet offered anything to eat to his spiritual master. So the spiritual master asked, he said, you haven't given me anything to eat. The disciple said, what do you mean? When I did the morning aarti, didn't you hear the bells? I offered after offering to the deities, I offered that prasad, Mahaprasad to you. And same thing when I offered lunch, the bhoga at lunchtime, noon aarti, I offered it to you. He misunderstood the injunctions of the Vedas. He didn't realize that when Guru is here, then he should be offering to the Guru. So again, Vapu Seva is also important. But even greater than Vapu Seva, Vapu means body. To serve the body of spiritual master is very important. But even higher than that is Vani Seva. To follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Because by satisfying our spiritual master, by following in his instructions, we can always be in association of our spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada reveals that when he went to Mayapur, many of his godbrothers, they criticized him. So in the early days, when he had taken the Western devotees along with him, they said that Srila Prabhupada, your godbrothers and other members of Gaudiya Math, they are saying that you are so ungrateful that you did not even go to see your Guru Maharaj Samadhi, So he said, well, I never felt separated from my spiritual master. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada, he is always with me. I am following his instructions. I never felt his separation. So there is no need for me. So again, he is taking instructions. Vani Seva is higher than Vapu Seva. He is showing by his own example. And yes, kuch to log kahenge, people are going to gossip about things. But a devotee has to understand the essence, that we are not in the center, Lord Krishna is in the center, Radharani is in the center. And she is constantly worshipping, she is dancing. So if you see Radha Krishna, Lord Krishna is playing on his flute, Radharani is dancing. And Srila Prabhupada, when he was being asked that why is they, not like other deities, why are they constantly in this pose? Srila Prabhupada said, well, if this dancing stops, everything is finished. So in Golok Vrindavan, they are constantly dancing. So won't you like to be the part of this dance? Won't you like to participate in this dance? That's the question we should be asking. Shouldn't we be, serving her, making it blissful, making that whole environment so enjoyable so that Lord Krishna is pleased, Mother Radha is pleased. And he said that the gopis and Radharani, when they would dress up very nicely, so beautifully to please Lord Shri Krishna. So when they would be dancing with Lord Krishna and Lord Krishna would look at the beautiful faces, moon-like faces, his beauty would increase. And seeing his beauty increase, their beauty would increase. And then seeing their beauty increase and their ecstasy increase, Lord Krishna's beauty would increase. And so there was continuous competition going on. So that's why Lord's potencies are constantly increasing, expanding. So one has to go through this transformation, right? So when we take to devotional service, we go through various type of transformations. And there are 6 main stages that we see. We also call it 6 C's of transformation. And in material life also we have seen any kind of practice that you want to take to, any kind of change you want to bring to your life. You see this 6 transformations. First is becoming conscious that there is a need for transformation, right? That we want to change our life in some manner. So that consciousness comes in, that we have to make a conscious effort to make this happen. And to make that happen, we try to understand what is the mindset that's going behind. And this mindset requires, an understanding of what are the principles and values that need to be followed. Just like in Bhakti Yoga, we talk about 4 regulative principles. Why are they there? To ensure that we are austere, we are clean, we are truthful, and we are merciful in our very dealing. So these are the 4 limbs: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. These are the 4 limbs of religion. So again, sometimes when religion is said as a bull, right, dharma. So we want to, do no intoxication. We don't want to have any meat and no meat eating, no fish, no eggs, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. So this is to follow those 4 limbs, the 4 legs of religion. And so complying is, and chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And how many rounds? Minimum 16 rounds. So that's part of complying on a daily basis. So regulated is also very important. What happens? So when you are heating something or when you are approaching the sun, there are similar transformations being seen. The first that happens is that the shell becomes hard, right? Initially it appears that one has become hard. So there's some crystallizing happening. So this hardness comes because of the immaturity, right? We are trying to do it, but it seems like we are, there's a difference between training and education, right? Training is, in circus, a lion is trained to jump through a hoop. And the hoop is on fire, still it's able to jump through the hoop because of training aspect. It doesn't know the education aspect yet, but it doesn't know all the physics behind it and what the fire can do and all that stuff, but it's just being trained so it does so. So in the initial stage we are, just like in the case of training, we are complying. So this is where once we are complying, being little immature, we may be little bewildered, so there's some crystallizing happening, some hardening happening. But this hardening is actually a good thing because this is going to cause anartha nivriti, right? So when we are engaged in devotional service, adho shraddha tatu sadhu sangha, then bhajana kriya, and then comes anartha nivriti syat. So this crystallizing causes that cracking on the outer shell. That all these misgivings, sarva upadhi vinirubhaktam, all these different kind of upadhis we are carrying, we break away from that. Just like Arjun broke away from the various kind of designations he was carrying. And he understood that he has to carry out his prescribed duty with the right understanding. Right? Lord Krishna says, remembering me, stand up and fight. Surrender unto me. So he's getting so many instructions. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mame vashasi satyam te pratijane priyosive. So man mana bhav mad bhakto. Always think of me and become my devotee. And then madhyaji mam namaskuru. Worship me and pay homage to me. And I will deliver you this. So again, he is telling us that this is how you do it. So again, what happens is all the misgivings, they drive away. All the anarthas, things that do not have any value in a spiritual world, they go away. So various kind of upadhis, we relinquish all those upadhis. We try to come to our constitutional position. And that is where, after cracking of all this and driving away of all the anarthas, comes conforming. Jivera Sarupoya Krishna Nityadas. So giving up all the destination of the body, we realize what is our true nature, right? Of the living entity, the Jiva soul, Jivera Sarupoya Krishna Nityadas, that we are eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. So we conform all our activities, and we talked about this. Activities can be performed three ways: mind, body and words. So all our activities are dovetail in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, because we want to serve Lord Shri Krishna with love, with devotion. And we are so grateful for this wonderful life, wonderful opportunity to be engaged in devotional service. It's a privilege, not a right. So we have to endeavor. That's why we call out for His mercy and Mother's Radharani's mercy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And now when we are conforming in our behavior, then we finally, by the mercy of Lordship, by the mercy of Mother Radha, Mother Hare, we become Krishna conscious. So that is again consciousness. So we started with consciousness, we ended with consciousness. But these two consciousness are on the other ends of this rainbow. One is material consciousness, where we want to realize that actually that is not the right consciousness. To be able to come to Krishna consciousness, we have to go through the 6 stages of transformation. And we constantly need support, right? So again, Acharyas explain Jivodaya, mercy is one of them. Then Namaruchi, having an interest in chanting of the holy name, is second. And then Vaishnava Seva, and serving the exalted Vaishnavas, that is the third one. So these 3 aspects are also there. And to be able to carry out these 3, we also need 3 C's of supports. Congregation, because it is Sankirtan Yajna, right? So congregational chanting, so we need devotee association, we need clarity. We again and again need to make sure what we are doing by using the 3 references of Sadhu, Guru and Shastra. Right? Sadhu is devotee association, Guru is spiritual master, and Shastra is the bona fide scriptures. We always have to do the check and balance. Use our intelligence, Srila Prabhupada said, so that we can continue to follow. And then conjuring is basically enjoying the various tricks and various activities, because this process is full of happiness, full of pleasure, full of enjoyment as well, you could say. Sometimes people say, well, this is a hard process. It's again the mindset. Which lenses are you using, right? If you're not focused properly, if your vision is set properly, then you may find it very difficult. That's how it is said that the happiness in the mode of goodness in the beginning appears like poison, and in the end appears like nectar. So this is what happens. In the beginning, when people are engaging, they think that it is very difficult to engage in devotional service. But when you start training it, your regulated life, then you realize that there's nothing more nectarian than devotional service. It is so blissful, so much filled with love. And that's what Lord Krishna says. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttam Paritavakshmam Dharmam Susukham Kartum Avyayam. This is the king of all knowledge, Rajvidya. Rajguhyam, it is the greatest secret. Pavitram, it is pure. And Uttamam, it is the topmost. Right? It is the best thing to engage in. Pratyakshvavagmam dharmam. So again, pratyaksha means you can perceive it in reality. Engaging in devotional service by chanting every day for the 16 rounds with attentiveness to please Srimati Radharani, to please Lord Shri Krishna, we realize that yes, this is something we can, we are doing it to please them, because that's where our true happiness resides. Susukham kartum avyayam, and it is joyfully performed. So it is not something that's performed in a morose manner, I have to finish my 16 rounds. No, it should be joyfully performed, because what are they doing? They are constantly dancing. So we want an entrance to this. We cannot get an entrance in a morose manner. We have to at least get to that mood, right? Understand, take shelter of the instructions of the acharyas to get to that mood. which also means that we may feel some separation, just like Uddhav is feeling the separation. That Lord Krishna, He is leaving, and He is leaving me behind. And He is asking me to take this message to Bhadrika Ashram, to the great sages, especially Nar Narayan Rishi. And this is again mercy of Lord Shri Krishna, that He wants the footsteps of His devotees to purify this planet Earth. So that's why He chose Srila Prabhupada to go around the globe and purify this planet Earth, so that there are dham in every country of this world, so that there are devotees chanting and dancing in every town and village of this world. And for next 10,000 years, this is golden age in this Kali times, right? In this Kali age, these 10,000 years are from the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They have started, and they have really accelerated and taken on full bloom with the appearance of Srila Prabhupada. And in that mood of Radharani, Srila Prabhupada is giving us the same message that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propagated. Now it is very interesting that sometimes we say we are talking about Krishna consciousness, right? And when we talk about Krishna consciousness, that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name was, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Chaitanya is consciousness. So it is in reality a moment of Radharani, in the mood of Radharani, with the covering of Radharani, golden. In the golden age it's appearing. So this everywhere Radharani is there. So when we want to see each other, we say Hari Bol. Yet at the same time, our heart is saying Radhe Radhe. We are glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? We call out to Nitai Gauranga, right? Nityananda Prabhu, who is Adi Guru, and Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Lord Krishna appearing with the complexion of Radharani, with that outer covering of Radharani, in the mood of Radharani. Because he wants to enjoy the ecstasy that Radharani feels. And he feels so ecstatic in that mood that he wants to give it to everyone. All we have to do is raise our hands and call out, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So in this chapter it is described that people who are unfit for these three forms of yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, they are inimical to Lord Krishna. So again, they are in forgetfulness, they are in the ignorance, so sometimes even influenced by pride. They are feeling that way. And they are attached to sense gratification. So we should not be in this category. And that they are dominated by the fruitive activities. All our engagement are to get some results, to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And they are all seeking to satisfy their material desires, and not knowing that actually by engaging in this manner they are only getting miseries in return, and they are losing this precious life, right? Dulabha Manava Janama Sansanghe. This rare form of life is supposed to be engaged in satsang, in congregation and chanting of the holy name. So this chapter identifies their faults. So if you can remove those faults, which are in terms of the place, the time, the substance, and the beneficiary of actions. So beneficiary of actions we have discussed extensively. Now with respect to place, a place where there is, Lord Krishna is revealing to Uddhav that there is no, the dark complexion antelope is there, the deers or spotted deers are there. The place there is no dham, no chanting, no holy men are there, no religious principles are being practiced. That place is an impure place. And back in the times, even Bihar and Bengal, they were like that. They were considered impure places in India. However, in the 13th century, Srila Jayadev Goswami appeared. And Dashavta prayers that we sing were written by Srila Jayadev Goswami. And also he wrote Git Govind and some of the amazing songs. So again, we have that collection that we sometimes sing. And also, so that place became sacred from that point onward. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself appeared at Navadvip, right, in Bengal. So Bengal became purified. So it is very much said that sometimes, because of the influence of time, some place becomes good, some place becomes bad. But how can we purify every place, just like Prabhupada did? By calling out to the Lordship, by engaging in devotional service, by sharing Krishna consciousness with others, this beautiful nectarian life of Krishna consciousness, the more we spread the happiness, the more it multiplies. Yet at the same time, Vaishnavas are said to be par-dukkha dukhi. If they see someone in distress, they become sad. So that divides, because they want to share and divide that unhappiness. The negativity should go down, positivity should rise. So when Lord Krishna says, Sarvalok Mahesham Surhidam Sarvabhutan, I am the best friend, well-wisher and benefactor of every living entity. A Vaishnava, a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, how can he be otherwise? He also acts in a manner so that he is benefiting everyone. He is spreading happiness everywhere. So that is the mood of a devotee. While people who are engaged in fruitive activities, they may take shelter of various religions, but they only cause havoc on this planet Earth. There are more wars that have been fought in history in the name of religion than anything else. And more blood has been shed in the name of religion. That is because of this bewilderment. That in the name of religion, these people were looking, calling themselves missionary, were actually seeking sense gratification, and Lord Krishna is calling them out here. And then he says that he sends them at the end of their life to the hellish conditions. So they suffer for eternity. So that is what their destination is. So we should not seek that kind of destination. Rather, we should be seeking destination. Now we're talking about the Vedas, right? So sometimes people talk about Vedas and they're referring to Vedas to rise to higher planets, to improve their conditions. So that is also putting ourselves in the center. Sometimes they are trying to perform various kind of penances so that they don't have to suffer the sinful reactions. And if they're performing prescribed duties of some other varna, right, not their original nature, but people from different nature, then that also results in sinful reactions. So that's, as per the Vedic injunction, it's very difficult to understand Vedas. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakta. Lord Krishna is very difficult to be approached through Vedas, because when someone is approaching through Vedas, they are trying to use it to improve their situation, not to satisfy Lord Krishna. Adurlabham atma bhakta. But Lord Krishna is very easily, adurlabham. Durlabh is very difficult, right? Adurlabham is not very difficult. Adurlabham atma bhakta. Lord Krishna is very easily approached by one who is his devotee, one who is seeking to please Lord Shri Krishna, engaging in devotional service to satisfy Shishi Radha Madan Mohan, Shishi Radha Shyam Sundar. And again, Srila Prabhupada writes about his Shyam Sundar form. It is Navyavanamcha. Advaitam Achyutam Manadim Anantarupam Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayavanamcha Vedeshu Durlabham Durlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Lord Krishna is in Brahma Samhita. Lord Brahma is singing that you are Advaitam, there is no one equal to you, Achyutam, you will never fall down, right? Anadim, right? There is no one older than you. And then Adim, you are the oldest person. Anantarupam, you have unlimited forms. So Lord Krishna is unlimited expansions. Adyam Purana Purusham, you are the oldest Purusha, enjoyer. Right? So Vedeshu Durlabham, Adyam Anam Purusham, Navayavanamcha, and you have youthful forms. So again, when somebody thinks of oldest person, they would think of an old person, but Lord Brahma says, no, he is Navayavanam. And Srila Prabhupada in one of the conversations says he has this mustache talking to a painter, which is like a young boy, a 16-year-old boy who has this hair-like mustache, right? So that is how he looks like, beautiful form, Navayavanam, Shyam Sundar form. Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakta. Very difficult to be approached through Vedas, but very easily approached and achieved by a devotee, very easily attained by a devotee, one who is seeking to please Lord Shri Krishna. So that is the main essence. Even with Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga and the mode of goodness, one gets to know about the religious principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy and truthfulness. And then one realizes that they have to take to devotional service. So even the mode of goodness is one of the material modes. So to be able to transcend it, one has to take to lovingly engage in devotional service. With gratitude, with love, with that humility, Taradapi shunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena kirtaniya sarahari. Taradapi shunichena is undertaking oneself to be more humble than the grass on the street. Tarorapi sahishnuna, being more tolerant than the tree. Amanina, not expecting any respect from others. Manadena, ready to give all respects to others. Kirtaniya sadahari. One can continue to chant the holy name of Lord, continue to glorify Lord Shri Krishna. So, Kirtaniya is also, glorification is also through reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is where we are reading UDDHAVA Gita, a very beautiful form of, Lord Shri Krishna, his description to Uddhav as how one should engage in devotional service. So we also talked about that no matter what is done, one should engage in devotional service. No matter, so you don't have to wait till mode of goodness. Wherever you are, you can take to devotional service. So now people say, but I still have various kind of desires, right, which are not conducive to devotional service. Then there is actually another statement being given earlier in Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. Akama, if you have no desire for sense enjoyment, which means all your desires are to serve Lord Shri Krishna. We living entities cannot be desireless. Even thinking that we don't have a desire is a desire. So you have to understand that akama here refers to the devotees. Sarva kama, even if one has all kind of material desires to enjoy in this material. Moksha kama, and among those, these material desires, even higher than that is the desire to attain liberation, moksha. Tivrena bhakti yogena, with great enthusiasm, with great zeal, one should engage in devotional service. Yajate purusham param. And whose devotional service? Purusham param, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. So that has been revealed again and again. So wherever we are, we should engage in devotional service because that would purify us. That engagement is like, the goal being, put in fire where all impurities are driven away. So that is what has been identified. Also in Garuda Purana, similar verse is given. Like we should not waste any moment. We should take to devotional service now for our benefit. Pavitra pavitro va sarvavastam gato api va yasmaret pundari kaksham sabhaya bhayantare shuchihi. Whether one is pure or contaminated, and regardless of one's external situation, simply by remembering the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, one can internally and externally cleanse one's existence. So we can purify our very existence. So austerity of mind, body and speech will automatically happen if we just engage in devotional service to Lord Shri Krishna. Which starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Atmanikshepa means surrendering everything to Lord Shri Krishna. We're talking about the 6 limbs. I couldn't remember that. So here, a place which is bereft of spotted antelope, devoid of devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even to the Brahmanas. And those who are possessing spotted antelopes but bereft of respectable man, right? And this respectable man doesn't mean like people who are just, very like their charity, celebrities. No, that's not what is being meant. That they are devotees of Lord Shri Krishna. That is respectable. True respectable men are the ones who are carrying out their daily duties as prescribed duties, right? For the satisfaction of Lord Shri Krishna. They are not just carrying out their prescribed duties, just that these are the duties and we have to perform mode of goodness, because even that is binding. That they are carrying it out for the satisfaction of Lord Shri Krishna. That's how that's how we can transcend. We have to carry it out of prescribed duties, but for the satisfaction of Lord Shri Krishna, not for our name, fame and glories. Right? And it's also said that places where they are meat eaters, they are actually contaminated places. So where purificatory rites are neglected, so they are contaminated places. So just the reverse of this makes a place a pilgrimage. So where people are, just like in your home, if you are not, having any you're not engaged in meat eating, you're not engaged in illicit sex, you're not engaged in intoxication, no gambling is going on, and you're chanting the holy name, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Your home becomes a dham. If you have Srimad Bhagavatam in your home and you read it on a daily basis, your home becomes a dham. If you're chanting the glories of Lord Shri Krishna, name, form, activities, pastimes, constantly, Tushyanti cha, Ramanti cha, constantly, enjoying and, in this nectarian time in conversing with each other, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So then your home becomes a dham. And you can, even in this time of lockdown, you can be at a holy place. And 5 most potent forms of processes in devotional service, what are those? Which can even enable a neophyte, a person who is new to Krishna consciousness, experience the love of God at the topmost, pinnacle in Krishna consciousness, that love of Godhead. What are these 5? One is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? Let's start right here. So we are doing that. Second is chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Third is worshipping the deities. When we read Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, here Lord Krishna says that one is worshipping me by one's intelligence, that study. Fourth is worshipping deities, chanting of the holy name, residing at a dham. So again, residing at a holy place. And then fifth is devotee association, right? Sadhu Sangha. So when we are doing it with our family members who are all living entities, right? Jivera Swarupa Krishna, some know it, some don't. But we should engage everyone and make it a pleasure-filled experience, make it a wonderful experience. And if they are somewhat inimical and resisting in the beginning, then all we have to do is pray to Lord Shri Krishna. Oh, my dear Lord Shri Krishna, please engage my family members, engage my wife, my children, my parents, my grandsons, all my family members, all my friends in your devotional service. So, chant on their behalf. That is also very beneficial. So as Lord Krishna continues to reveal that based on time, and time purifies things in due course of time. So even in COVID-19, we understand that if there are some germs, you kind of leave them for a little while, they go away. So again, time cures, and especially with some combinations of chemicals and so forth, that goes away. So now when one is taking to Krishna consciousness, various analogies have been used by Lord Shri Krishna in this chapter, and many of them have been also used in the purport. Just like when a child is given at the time of, by the doctor, candy with the medication, it is foolishness to accept the candy and throw away the medication. Now, understanding this aspect today, the doctors have become very intelligent. They mix, the candy flavor in the medication itself. So now if you go to buy a cough syrup, they sell it like, strawberry flavored or blueberry flavored. They kind of put the taste right there. So this is what Srila Prabhupada, actually they must have taken the example from Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada, when he performed devotional service, he was performing with so much ecstasy that everybody who saw him wanted to feel that ecstasy. Just like Lord Krishna, when he saw Radharani in ecstasy, he wanted to experience that ecstasy. So because Radharani had that potency, she passed on that potency to Srila Prabhupada, that when everyone in this material world saw Srila Prabhupada, he looked so attractive. When His Holiness Achyutanand Maharaj, when he saw Srila Prabhupada first time at Matchless Gift Store, and he entered, he saw Srila Prabhupada so grave, with such a command that he appeared like a general of the universe, not general of the nation, not general of the planet. He appeared like the general of the universe. So people were automatically attracted to Srila Prabhupada because of this wonderful potency, because Radharani has that potency, that even Lord Krishna is attracted to her. Right? He is ready to render service to Radharani, but rather taking service, Radharani teaches us that we should be engaged in service of Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees. So we should constantly be seeking opportunity. So here, only a fool would accept the candy and not take the medication. So we don't want to be that fool that we are following various kind of rituals without understanding the spirit behind them, because we are having a great loss in that process. So we really need to bring the spirit of the rituals together so that we who are spiritual beings have spiritual experience, not material experience anymore. Another analogy is, like we talked about this, that someone is approaching sun and one feels hotter and hotter as the time passes. And it does feel that one's own experience, own heart is going through various transformations, like it's going to feel hard, heart cracking, and finally healed and hearty, right? So that's like devotional service in the beginning, in the mode of goodness, when one's knowledge is there, it appears, the happiness appears to be like poison in the beginning and nectar at the end. In the mode of passion, it appears like nectar in the beginning because the fame glories are being chanted, but it becomes poisonous at the end. In the mode of ignorance, it is like poison in the beginning and poison at the end. Why do we want to be in the lower modes? We want to be in the higher modes to experience the nectar. So just like when somebody wants to build their body, they go through the exercises and so forth to be able to build. So that's some level of austerity, some level of sacrifice on their part, but by keeping the focus on having a healthy body. Sometimes people get driven to the extreme to build bodies and so forth. So just like that, in the beginning when we are practicing devotional service, it may appear, yes, there is endeavor, there is some austerity. But if we do it on a regular basis, it becomes a second nature. Daily basis when we do it, and then we can't live without it. We automatically wake up early in the Brahma Muhurta time. We start picking up the bead bag and we start chanting with the focus that we want to chant to please Lord Shri Krishna. So we must do it attentively. We must call out their names very nicely, with love, with devotion, and we should hear them very attentively so that those words, they would enter our heart. Shri Shri Radha Krishna, they would enter our heart and light up our heart, and our heart would be a perfect place, a clean place, without any alloys, without any mixture of karma or jnana, fruitive activities or speculative knowledge. So we should not be looking any of those, and there we can constantly serve Shri Shri Radha Krishna. And such people who cannot do this, they are just like trees, the conditioned souls, they are cut down by the laws of nature. So again, Devi Hesha Gurumai Mama Maya Duratyaya Mame Vye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. Lord Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that this material energy of mine is very difficult to cross. Yet those who surrender unto me can easily cross over it. But those who don't surrender, what happens to them? Here Lord Krishna reveals that they are just like trees are cut down. Such conditioned souls, they are cut down. They go through miseries in the cycle of birth and death. And Janam Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. So they constantly see the miseries from birth, death, old age and disease. And they are caught in this eternal cycle. So for many, many births, they go through this cycle. And sometimes people, they perform sacrifices, austerity and charity in ignorance without understanding the basis behind them, seeking sense gratification. That is like performing them in dream. So when in the dream you have performed some austerity, charity for your sense gratification. So the focus given in this chapter is that when somebody performs these activities for sense gratification, attached to the fruits of one's labor, right? Engagement in any activity yields some results, so they have this attachment to the fruits. And because of that, it causes their fall down. So that is like, performing them in dreams, so they don't give any results, but they lose their important time. They lose their, time as well as their energy that goes away. While regulated life, they free one from the anarthas. Just like, there's an example given of, the shops of liquor. They have to get license from the government so that they, provide, limited quantity of alcohol to the general public, and so that general public do not engage in over intoxication and further fall down. So by living a regulated life enables us to be away from Maya and more in the service of Lord Shri Krishna. Yes, Grihasthas and other people, they have to engage, right? Householders are responsible to engage in economic development. So we have to deal with material people, but we don't take their association. We just interact with them sufficient enough to carry out our duties while engaging our focus in Krishna consciousness. Just like Lord Krishna told Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, your prescribed duty is to fight. But even if you try to leave the battlefield, you will be forced by your nature to engage in warfare. So similarly, we Grihasthas, we have this responsibility for economic development. We will be engaging, taking care of our family. So if we do that, if we try to quit it, then it will not be satisfying, and finally we will feel unsatisfied and will turn back to this path. So we don't want to be in that situation. Similarly with regulated life, when we are engaged in regulated, life, constantly chanting the holy name and following the 4 regulative principles for the satisfaction of Lord Shri Krishna, then all these anarthas that we may be carrying, right, that feeling of some level of sense gratification, over a period of time they will wash away. Such purifying, you don't have to take to another process in devotional service. That's what Lord Krishna reveals to again in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, that one doesn't have to take to any other process. Just by engaging in devotional service, one gets purified internally and externally. And just like a foolish businessman who loses his wealth because of not using his business skills properly, a fool, they lose the purpose of Vedas but not understanding the purpose of Vedas. Right? Sarvasya chaham hridasannivishto mattah smriti jnanam apohanam cha Vedaischa sarver ahamev vedyo vedanta kridveda vidaiva chaham. Lord Krishna reveals to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridasannivishto. I am residing in every living entity's heart, right? As super soul. So that's how we understand Lord. He has expanded, He has unlimited forms. So He has expanded Himself, and as super soul form, as overseer and permitter, He is residing in every living entity's heart. It's the same super soul in my heart, your heart, and everyone. So you may be there, I may be here, but He is everywhere. In your heart as well as here. Mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Lord Krishna says, from me comes smritir. Right? Remembrance, jnanam, knowledge, and apohanam, forgetfulness. So if we want to forget Lord Shri Krishna, because we have this minute freedom, He allows that to happen also. But at the same time, Srila Prabhupada, by his prayers, telling us that we should constantly be praying, oh dear Krishna, please do not let me forget you, always remembering you. And we also see from the prayers of Jay and Vijay, who were cursed by the 4 Kumaras, that they are saying, please Lordship, do not let us forget you. We should always remember you. Please bless us. So this is a blessing we are constantly asking, that we want to always remember Lord Shri Krishna, never forget. Right? And that is a smart mantra. Smartavyo satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na jatu chita sarve vidhi nishede sureta yoreva kinkara. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Sarve vidhi nishede sureta yoreva kinkara. All other rules and regulations are just kinkara, just subservient to these 2 principles. Smartavyo satatam Vishnu, always remember Krishna. Vismartavyo na jatu chit, never forget Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful. And it is, now Lord has revealed that just like a spider from its heart, it emits through the mouth, coming from the heart, it's emitting this web and creating this web, the spider web. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives the Vedas. So He is giving it for our benefit. But we have to understand it in the right manner. And when a devotee comes to understand the purpose of the Vedas, which is given is Vedescha sarve rahame vivetyo. Vedant kridveda videva chaham. So in that verse he is saying that I am to be known by the Vedas. I am the knower of the Vedas, and the purpose of the Vedas is to know me perfectly. So Lord Krishna is revealing the very purpose of Vedas, and he is the one who is giving the Vedas. In Brahma Samhita clearly it's given that Lord Krishna, by playing on his flute, the Vedas they come out and enter the ears and the heart of Lord Brahma. So that is there. And such a devotee, when, being blessed, the most fortunate situation Acharyas reveal is when one gets the fortune to be able to experience love of Godhead. And just by following the 5 services, even a neophyte can experience love of Godhead. Then one can understand that this world, is a wide web. So World Wide Web, yes. So the spider example is being given as an analogy. That just like Lord Krishna, from his pores, all these material universes come out. And then he expands the Karnadaksha Vishnu, from Karnadaksha Vishnu form to Garbhodaksha Vishnu. He enters every single material universe. And we are from his Garbh, from his navel, sprout the lotus flower where Lord Brahma is formed. And the secondary creation happens from Lord Brahma there. So just like a spider creates this big web, Lord Krishna is creating these Purusha avatars. He is creating these material universes. And again, he is bringing it annihilation time. He is absorbing, he is taking it back in, just like a spider takes away the whole web after some time. So similarly, a devotee sees how creation, how destruction in this material world is like this, like the spider web, which has been brought by the spider in existence and been consumed by the spider in due course of time. So that is how everything is seen. And understanding that temporary nature, that it's a relatively temporary, because absolute nature doesn't change, right? Absolute means that which does not change. But this material world, even though eternal, constantly is changing. That's why it's also referred to as temporary. But in reality, it is eternal, but its form is changing. So that is an important aspect that has been explained. And just like sometimes a doctor, he heals a crazy man with sympathy, trying to remove the delusion the crazy man has, right? Try to provide them that insight, looking at the very core where the root cause is, and identifying that in this due course of sympathetic talk with the crazy patient, one eradicates those delusions. Similarly, a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna has to be very sympathetic to innocent people who are not inimical to Lord Shri Krishna, who are innocent, they do not know the purpose of life, to share that purpose of life, to build that goal of life. So again, when Lord Shri Krishna in 2nd chapter and then in 9th chapter and 18th chapter, he is telling the confidential knowledge, more confidential knowledge, most confidential knowledge, and then later on in 18th chapter, he further redefines the confidential, more confidential and most confidential. And there he is defining that the confidential knowledge is Aham Brahmasmi, that every living entity is, Brahman, right? So Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, that one who is situated at Brahman stage, who has, liberated himself and transcended the 3 modes of material natures, Sattva Guna, mode of goodness, Raja Guna, mode of passion, Tama Guna, mode of ignorance. One who has transcended, come out of the clutches of these 3 modes of material nature. And how can we come out? By engaging in loving devotional service of Lord Shri Krishna for his pleasure. So that's how we transcend them. Such a person who is at Brahman stage is Prasannatma. He is rejoicing. Na shochati na kankshati. He does not lament over the past, like what has happened in the past. Na kankshati. And he does not aspire for something in the future. Because both are anxieties, right? They are both chintas. Anxiety is also called chinta. And in 8th grade in India, we read this in a Hindi class. The chinta chita ke saman hoti hai, right? There is only a difference of a dot. Chita is the fire at the pyre, right? At the last time when the body is placed, the dead body, and it's being burned. So that is Chitta. And Chinta is anxiety. And the only difference between two is a dot. And that dot is a big difference. Because at the fire when you are burned, your body is burned, at that time you are dead. You have left the body. But this anxiety burns you while you are alive. So it is more dangerous. And how do you take care of this anxiety? By taking shelter of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. By calling out for His mercy that please engage me in your service, I have no other shelter. You are all in all. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that is this particular confidential knowledge. Na shochite na kankshite, samha sarveshu bhutaji. He is equally disposed towards all living entities. Mad bhakti labhate param. He is constantly engaged in my devotion service with love, with gratitude, with humility, and being tolerant about all the external conditions, because he is constantly in bliss. Why? And prasannatma, right? He is happy, he is rejoicing. Then he reveals the most confidential knowledge that Lord is residing in everyone's heart as super soul. So one should continue to perform prescribed duties to satisfy him. So instead of seeking self-gratification, one should continue to perform prescribed duties. Then this is the more confidential knowledge. So we understand Jivera Sarupaya Kṛṣṇa Nityadas. So every living entity is an eternal servant of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Yet at the same time, all our activities which are performed by three ways, right? Mind, body and words. We should engage all our activities to please the Super Soul in our heart. The Super Soul is none other than Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, who has expanded as Super Soul and is everywhere. So, and the most confidential knowledge is later on given in Bhagavad Gita as Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyasime. And then the following verse, right? So here he is telling how to do it. Now he tells what to do. This is the most confidential knowledge. Sarva dharvam parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishashmi mahashucha. Give up all varieties of religion. So again, we can be engaged in so many different processes, activities and practices. We should give up all those things. What should we do then? We'll say, wait a minute, are we becoming Jnana Yogi? No. Lord Krishna clearly says, Maam ekam sharanam vraja, take shelter of me, surrender unto me. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo, I shall deliver you from all your sinful reactions. And Mahashucha means do not fear, do not be anxious. So we have nothing to be anxious about, and take to the 6 limbs of surrender, right? And serve him. So, and then Lord Krishna also reveals that when somebody is not serving him and seeking sense gratification for such a person, sometimes what appears to be a pious action becomes sinful action, right? So it has sinful reaction. And sometimes what is ordinarily a sin becomes a pious action. So that has to be that piety on the strength of Vedic injunctions. So Vedas, understanding Vedas is also very difficult, because to be able to apply Vedas, we have to follow and understand our nature. And then we could very well carry out prescribed duties based on our bodily nature, or we could carry out based on our spiritual nature. Now eternal nature is spiritual nature, which simply means we should carry it out as Lord Krishna desires. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. By following the footsteps of Acharyas favorably to please Lord Shri Krishna. That's how we should carry out. And such special rules which are in effect, right? Because of the pious and impious actions as per the Vedas, they sometimes eradicate the clear distinction, because we do not know. We have the 4 defects in this material world. All the conditioned souls, we have these 4 defects. What are the defects? Our senses are imperfect. We don't have perfect senses. If the room is turned dark, Srila Prabhupada gave this example, we can't even see our senses, right? So our senses are imperfect. We have propensity to cheat, right? So sometimes we think I should do this activity and that will give me a nice result, but we don't get results all the time, right? So that's also a way of cheating ourselves. Gambling is a way of cheating ourselves, telling ourselves that in the next bet I'll win. So we have the propensity to cheat. And we have propensity to be illusioned. So sometimes we may become bewildered. We test something and think that this is a bug or this is a snake or something like that. We become fearful. So this is because of illusion, propensity to be illusioned. And then, last but not the least, human is we have propensity to make mistakes. Yet at the same time, Lord Krishna says, when you take shelter of me and serve me in devotion, even though you are doing it with mistakes, there is no reaction to it. And I will actually deliver you from all your past reactions, sinful reactions. So if you had, before coming to devotion service, if you performed any sinful reaction, He will take it away. But then sometimes people say, but you know what? I still got the scratch. Well, our whole hand was supposed to be cut off. But Lord Krishna is so merciful that He reduces that punishment to just to a scratch on our arm. So He reduces it immensely, being merciful Father. And that is also because Radharani is putting up petition. So sometimes when you go to a court and you have to have a lawyer, if your lawyer is, so strong, so famous that they can win any case, then you feel like, yes, well, Radharani is going to put up petition in front of Lord Shri Krishna, one who has taken away the heart of Lord Shri Krishna. So what can the energetic do without his energy? She is his Aladini Shakti, his pleasure-giving potency. And Lord Krishna is Atmaram, so he always in pleasure. So without her, how can be in pleasure? So he is constantly, seeking this. With Radharani, he is constantly rejoicing in Golok Vrindavan. And we are going through Radharani, through our eternal mother, to please Lord Shri Krishna. So we don't want to be caught in this. What is the, prescribed duty for me, based on my bodily condition? Rather, we should understand, yes, by our spiritual master, take shelter of a spiritual master, be in association of devotees, read the Shastras, and everything becomes revealed to us. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya updekshanti tajjnanam jnanenas tattvadashina. So there is a process that we have to follow. We have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, serve him, and inquire submissively from him, because he can reveal the truth to us, because he has seen it. So that is from Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna reveals to Arjuna. So here, people who have sown to sense gratification, Lord Krishna is telling Uddhav, they cannot understand this confidential conclusion of Vedic knowledge. They cannot understand how one should be spiritually carrying out various Vedic injunctions. And they take pleasure in violence. So such people who are just seeking sense gratification, they become hard-hearted. And so they even resort to violence. They cruelly slaughter animals, not understanding that these animals are also living entities. And because they are slaughtering these animals in the name of sacrifice, later on, these animals would be sacrificing them in return. So they're wasting their life and they're inviting much trouble in the future. And they worship, improperly. They worship the living entities, other living entities, improperly, while actually indirectly they worship Lord Shri Krishna, because Bhoktaram Yagya Tapsam, so of all the sacrifices, the beneficiary is Lord Shri Krishna. Yet at the same time they are doing it incorrectly, because they are going through worshipping demigods, forefathers and leaders, some important person people are worshipping. And sometimes even ghostly creatures. And such passion for violence, is never encouraged in the process of Vedic injunctions and Vedic sacrifices. It is never encouraged. So such people are bewildered. Just like Maharaj Prachin Barhi, he was performing animal sacrifices one after another. And Devashi Narad came and told him the story of Puranjan and Puranjani. So we have covered that in other classes before. Just to reveal him. And then he said, actually I was talking about you. You see all these animals? And he looked at the roof and he was able to see all these animals, their souls became, the subtle form became visible to him by the mercy of Devashi Narad. So they're just waiting, when you die, they will get to, sacrifice you, they get to eat you. The hellish condition is where, these animals, they get to prey on the body of the person who sacrificed them, and in their next lives they have to go through similar, painful states. And just like we talked about, that Lord has unlimited potencies and He is making everything possible, and this human form of life is a perfect boat. So we should take to this devotional service. And when Lord is talking about His unlimited potencies and His opulences, which are unlimited, at the same time He wants to share it with us, right? So if you are looking for opulences, why look for opulences which are temporary in nature, which are not fully satisfying and further becoming the cause of misery? Why not seek for opulences which Lord is willing to share? Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam shimad urjitam evava tat tad eva gachatvam mana tejo amsha sambhavam. Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals in Bhagavad Gita that know that all beautiful, glorious and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. So He is ready to invite us. He is waiting for us as a father, affectionate father. All we have to take is take shelter of Radharani. And Radhashtami is coming, dear devotees. So this is also another opportunity for us to take shelter of Radharani, sing her glories, Jai Radhe, Jai Kṛṣṇa, Jai Vrindavan, so that we can get the mercy of Shri Kṛṣṇa and we can have an entrance into Golok Vrindavan, where we can, just like the Acharyas have shown by their own examples from their own experiences, that they were able to enter into the Ashtakaliya's Leelas and see Lord Kṛṣṇa. Otherwise they were also in this mood of separation, just like Uddhav is feeling, that Lord is leaving him, he is in this mood of separation. So we should understand the essence of Vedas. We should understand the knower of Vedas, who is none other than Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. We should understand the purpose of Vedas, which is to satisfy Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And the one who is the maintainer and giver of Vedas, who is none other than Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So to be able to serve Him, we should call out for His mercy with our heart attentively in this mood of love and devotion with humility and gratitude. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. For His pleasure, and our life would be perfect. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Please join us for Nasimadev prayers. Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
नवीन विनाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.